So let's talk about job interviews. That part of the life, right? That no one really likes, where you need to catch up with many things to remember how to do stuff, right? So today, in the next minutes, I'd like to talk about my experience doing job interviews, both as an interviewer and also on the candidate side. This talk is mostly about my experience in the IT world, but the majority of the aspects we'll be talking about apply to any industry, not only IT, because some of them are simply common sense. Right, so again, this is me. I like again to share my personal experience, so you don't necessarily have to agree on everything. And of course, if you disagree on everything, I think it's a very valuable discussion, right? Later on, we can have a chat and we can see different perspectives to the job interview process. In my life, as I mentioned before, I participated on 11 job interview processes. I got an offer in 10 of them. And to me, the one I failed, I finished second out of 90 candidates. That was the most valuable one because I learned a lot. Yeah? So generally speaking, in life, you learn more when you fail than when something works as you expect. So I like to divide this session in 3 parts. Imagine that you got a call from a recruiter. I'm sure you love recruiters in London, right? When you get a call from a recruiter, essentially there are three parts, right? What happened before the job interview, during the interview, and what people tend to underestimate, what can you do after the interview? So let's talk about these 3 stages. So some people complain, hey, why I don't get that many calls from the industry? What's going on? Obviously, the CV is the first stage. Even today in 2019, right? Even with things like LinkedIn, still the CV is very important. It's very important. So we here as part of Coding, this is a coding academy, we continuously reviewing CVs, yeah? And when you work on your CV, you should bear in mind that an employer don't really care about how many companies you've been working with, where you've been studying, where do you live. So yeah, I don't believe it's a good practice to put your address on the CV. Things like, especially people coming from different countries, they do like dropping a picture. That's not even legal, so don't do these things, right? So the CV should be as plain as possible. And to me, there are at least 2 vital things. And I know, because we're in touch with many tech companies and recruitment agencies, that if you don't promote these 2 things correctly, that's it. No one will read the CV. No one will read the CV, right? Everyone goes to the point. And what's the point? 2 things. First of all, about me. Yeah, it's very important to talk about you. Just few paragraphs, 2-3 paragraphs. Yeah, this is especially important if you are trying to break into the industry. Once you are a senior developer and you are applying to a £700 a day job, probably they will know you or they will have really good references about you. It's not that vital. But if you're trying to break into the market, what's your experience? Nothing, right? So what do you need to promote? Yourself, your attitude, your motivation. So the about me, the first section, or bio, or it doesn't matter how you call it, yes? But few paragraphs describing yourself. To me, that's the most important part. If I'm not happy with that part, that's over, game over. Yeah, there is nothing else to do. What do we talk on that part? Well, first of all, attitude, motivation. If you want to break into the industry, what can you bring? Energy, right? Fresh energy, that's the only thing. Don't underestimate also how important it is to talk about things like books. Yeah, that today they feel like they are not important anymore. They are still important. So if you like to read technical books, I appreciate having at the end maybe of your biography, my favorite tech books are ABC. Yeah. If you are a JavaScript developer, we work with many JavaScript developers. So if you're thinking about working in the JavaScript or in the web world, sometimes skills like CSS are underrepresented, right? So if you're a JavaScript developer and you prove that you like CSS, it's a good opportunity to like, oh, this guy likes the styling thing. Yeah. So try to offer something a bit different, something that you know is demanded in the market. Also, extremely important, the technology stack. Yeah? In the IT, you know to do things, right? You know a bunch of things. Could be coding, could be management, could be whatever, right? But we are expecting to see a list of things, list of technologies, list of methodologies that can match with our company, right? Essentially, if I have a startup and I'm looking for a JavaScript developer, I want to hire someone that talks about JavaScript, React, and no, that's it. Yeah, that's it. If I don't find these words, that's it. Yeah. Also, FYI, some recruitment agencies, and I strongly disagree, but yeah, you know, sometimes we don't necessarily have to agree with everything. It's the way the world works. Some recruitment agencies, when they are looking for a candidate, if they are looking for a Python developer, they do Control F and they search how many times the word Python is listed. What do you think about that? That's horrible, right? That proves nothing. But hey, that's the way some companies operate. So don't underestimate how important it is to remark how good you are with Python, with Agile, with MongoDB, with whatever you want to promote in your CV. Finally, projects. Listen, when I talk about projects, of course, if you have experience, relevant experience, right? So you've been working as a developer for a while or as a product manager for a while, that's absolutely important. But, you know, at some point, if you're trying to break into the market, you don't have any of that. You may have a lot of experience in other areas, not in the IT one, yeah? So if that's the case, it's very valuable to express how much active you are in the community. What are we talking about? Things like, do you have GitHub? If you have GitHub, drop the GitHub link, right? Do you have a portfolio? Do the same thing. Do you attend Meetup events like this one? Just drop it in the CV, right? I know some people like, really, should they do that? I will do that. That proves attitude, right? If I'm between two candidates and one of them likes to attend tech events, to me, it's like a message, like this guy is motivated about IT, about technology, yeah? Also, you have a YouTube channel, do it. Here we help people recording workshops about any aspect of coding, yeah? So when our students record a workshop, that they put a link in the CV, so the recruiter or the company, the employer, they can watch the video and they will get a feeling, they will smell how that person thinks, reacts, codes, all these sort of things. Yeah. So don't underestimate how important all these things are. And it goes without saying that if you collaborate with any charity, right, you know, things like Code Your Future, Code Bar, all these things, yeah, this is very important because again, that proves attitude. That proves that you are, you know, interested on helping unprivileged people. Yeah. Here, as part of Codery, we collaborate with several charities. Right, and of course, last but not least, look after the styling. Yeah, it's incredible how many CVs we receive from junior developers where the layout looks like taken from Microsoft Word 95, right? Times New Roman. You know, tables around. It's not complicated. Go to Google, I'm sure you can get some inspiration, right? It's okay to have some basic colors. Don't bring too many colors. Yeah. Also think that the CV is, generally speaking, still in 2019 printed. So be careful if you select colors. Don't put pinks and bright ones because they won't be readable. Also, if you put links on the CV, which is a common practice and I think it's a good thing, some people tend to put the link. But if they have a workshop on YouTube, they put the word YouTube and the hyperlink, right? That works when you are reading the CV on the screen, but if you print the CV, you cannot click on the link. So generally speaking, we recommend to have the full link on the CV, even if it doesn't look that sexy. But in reality, if I print the CV and I have youtube.com/PeterCoding, I can then type it manually, right? So layout. Right, so yeah, we mentioned that already, right? How important all these aspects are, so I'll skip them. Again, this will be on YouTube later on, so if you want to check all the details, that's absolutely fine. Right, so once our CV looks great, we didn't mention the portfolio, but let me talk first about LinkedIn. Yeah, about 80% of our students who got a job in the industry, they managed to secure it through LinkedIn. So that's still very important. Again, the majority of the patterns we talk about on the CV apply to LinkedIn. Yeah. For instance, the biography, the about me, that's the same thing. I literally copy and paste it. I have the same thing in both. Skills, extremely important. I mean, this is pretty obvious, right? I think this is pretty obvious. Nothing Nothing else to mention. Before going to the next steps, the portfolio, right? Especially if you are trying to break into the industry, you need to do things differently, right? If you want to have experience, you have some credit, you have some background, it's easy to evaluate you. But you don't have an experience, you need to do things differently. So having a portfolio may help, where you, again, describe your attitudes, your skills, your abilities. So, when I do an interview, generally speaking, the first question we ask the candidate is, thank you for coming, blah, blah. What do you know about us? It's very weird when the candidate says, well, not much really. That's weird. It happens more often than it should, right? And I believe, and again, this is just finger in the air feeling, that if a person comes to a job interview and knows nothing about the company, the team, the product, or the services, it's because that person is there for what? For the money. Yeah? It's not a good message. It's not a good message that you are a money-driven person. We'll talk about money later on, yes?
About this question about what we know about us. And I suppose it doesn't happen a lot of the time when people do manage to answer the question, they simply state the obvious. And if so, what would be like the obvious being what it is just simply, well, effectively the note from the website, and probably what the public knows in general. How can we improve on that?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk in the next slide probably, maybe about that. Yeah, well, how can we go a bit deeper, right, than just checking the website, product, services, and then vomit that information later on, right? But at least the minimum, you should have an idea, right? If you don't cover that threshold, you are out. It's the way it works. So, back to the question. On top of the obvious, I particularly like, and I'm talking now as a candidate, not as an interviewer, to check, to try to figure out, and I reckon that's not always possible, who will drive the interview. Try to figure out, if you got a call from a recruiter, ask him or her, can I know who is tech lead, business manager, whoever, right? Why? Because if you know the person that's going to drive the interview, you can check the LinkedIn profile. So first of all, you can connect to the person, and then you can scroll down, something that nobody does on LinkedIn. You can scroll down, and then you can save some interesting references about that person. We'll see how to use that weapon during the interview, right? But for now, we're still on the research phase, Apart from the obvious, again, try to find something that they don't expect. They will expect you to know about the basics of the company, especially if it's a big one. But they will never expect you to scroll down and see where the employer worked 10 years ago. So, again, this is what we mentioned, right? Try to get as much information as possible during the interview. So, okay, we got a call, and essentially, let's start the process. There are many stages on a job interview, depending on what do you do. That may change a bit, because the majority of you are coders or are interested in the coding industry. You know the steps, right? So we're talking about a phone call where they may ask you some technical questions. Then they may send you an unattended test, unattended test, where they tell you, we want to send you that problem, please try to solve it. Don't spend more than 2 hours working on it. And that's not true, right? And that's one of the reasons why the unattended test is being dropped from the interview processes, especially in America and the UK. Because some candidates, they may give up. If I got an offer, from a company, and it's not like the company I always dreamed to work with, right? That may happen as well. One of my best friends, he used to work for Google California, but his dream was to work for Square Enix. You know Square Enix video games? So he went to Japan and he started to work at Square Enix. So obviously it was his dream. So he did whatever it was necessary to get that job. But that's not the case, unfortunately, 99% of the case. So if I got an offer of a company and you are like, all right, why not? But the first thing they tell you is, please waste your weekend doing this test, you will give up, right? That happened even with big companies, with well-known companies paying a lot of money. Candidates give up, A good developer in London can easily get 5 to 10 job offers a day. So what's the point of investing a weekend just doing an unattended test? No, this is not happening anymore, or not that often at least. But apart from that, at some point you'll be invited to go to the company, have a chat, and then you're speaking, they try to check two things, your soft skills and your hard skills. So on your hard skills is about the same thing, right? So they will try to evaluate how good you are technically speaking. And what are we talking about? They may ask you some technical questions. They may ask you to solve a board challenge. Yeah, you see what there is a whiteboard with some code on it. Not even code, they can show you some boxes, and it's talking about algorithms. Nothing right or wrong. They just want to see how do you think, how do you react, how do you express, how do you share ideas. Yeah, maybe in that test, maybe there is something not correct. So they want to see if you spot the problem. Yeah, how do you proceed? All these things. Yeah. Also pairing. You know what pairing is? Pairing exercise. Yeah, you have to sit with someone and you'll have to solve a problem together. Yeah, pairing is one of the most important aspects of agile methodologies. Yeah? Companies like Sky, which is one of the best companies to work in IT in London, they do pairing full time. So since you arrive to office until the afternoon, you are working with someone side by side. Yeah, so don't underestimate how important pairing is. Yeah, and to satisfy the requirements on the pairing, it's very important to get used to understand others' code. It's very easy to understand your code, like you're writing, you understand your letters and everything, but if you need to see what others wrote, that may be more complicated. With coding, it's the same thing. And about the soft skills, something that especially developers don't like that much, because this is not a technical talk where they feel comfortable. It's about dealing with HR, when they ask weird questions. Like, if the office is on fire, what do you do first? And, so that's pretty obvious, right? But some of the questions are a bit tricky. Like, well, you're asking me that. You'll have to be ready to talk about strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, I'll be back to that in a minute. So again, there are many different aspects or stages in the job interview. But the first thing is common. Free advices, free suggestions. Never be late. If you have to interview someone, probably you are a manager and your time is very limited. The person is 5 minutes late. Not a good message. Remember, first impression only happens once. Never be late. Sometimes, especially if you work in the city or even in Canary Wharf, finding the place may be challenging if it's your first time there. So yes, arrive 1 hour before. Once you find the place, just grab a coffee, right? But don't try to arrive 5 minutes earlier because you may fail. And this is very frustrating because you'll be late, you'll be sweating, you'll be nervous. It won't work, right? Speaking. Let's talk about the dress code. It's a controversial thing. Some companies care, some companies don't really care. It depends on the industry you are going to join. It depends on how corporate. There are companies where you are not even allowed to drop your jacket in the chair because it gives a bad feeling to customers. You need to leave the jacket somewhere. We have a wide range of situations. Again, same as we mentioned before with the person who is going to interview you. Try to ask the employer or the recruiter, what's the dress code? It's an open question. I think it's fair. It proves attitude. It proves that you do care about these things. If that's not possible because of whatever reason, thankfully today we got things like Instagram, Facebook, where you can get pictures of the employees that will give you an idea about the dress code. And at the end of the day, once you know the dress code, what do? Try to match it as much as possible, or it's okay to feel a bit smarter than usual, to look a bit more sophisticated, but not much. Again, some companies don't care. I've been interviewing people in suits, people with flip-flops. I don't really care, but some companies do care, so let's try to look after these things, because it also proves, even if you don't care, if you're applying to, companies like Morgan Stanley, if you go to a job interview Morgan Stanley with flip-flops, it proves that you don't care, right? You didn't even try to investigate, to research just a bit, what's the dress code at Morgan Stanley, just as an example. I don't want to say that they are particularly, special. Yes. Banking. Right, so this is obviously important all the time, but again, if you're a junior developer, attitude, you're going to join a company with people who is way more skilled than you, and even if you are on top, even if you're a rock star of whatever you are doing, it doesn't matter. You'll work with people as skilled as you, that they will also know everything about the company, not you. So on your first day, you'll need help, right? So what the company wants to see is that you can progress by yourself. You have the ability to find answers. Of course, that may require asking and getting things from your colleagues, no problem at all. But they want to see energy. Yeah, if you go to a job interview, prove energy, attitude, motivation. You are there because you like the team, you like the product, you like the company, you like the services, even if it's not 100% true. But at least try to prove that energy. At some point in your life, if it's not happening already, you'll be working in an environment where everyone is extremely good, everyone comes to the office, does the job, they go, they get the money, and all good. But it's some sort of, not boring, but very plain working environment. Yeah? Especially HR, they are looking for people who bring some fresh energies, right? Which is what we mentioned. And let's talk a bit about money. That's a classic question, right? How much do you want to make? Yeah? This is very controversial. I can tell you what I always do, and generally speaking, it has worked really well. But again, I understand that you completely disagree on that. So when I got the question about how much you want to make, my answer is always the same, and it's true, to be honest. But let me show you. I always said I don't care. I'm not a money-driven person. Yeah. Why? Because first of all, if you are there in the company, you already know the salary range. You know if that range works for you or not. Because if it doesn't work, you wouldn't be there, right? So the range is acceptable. And then, if you prove that you don't care about money, the message is you are not there because of the money. You are there because you really like. It's a way to prove what you mentioned a few minutes ago, that you like the team, you like the energy, so you are keen to sacrifice part of your salary to work as part of the team. That sounds a bit extreme, but under my experience, what happened is, because of that, alongside all the other things, the company ended up offering me a better salary than the top range. Yeah? So the range was from here to there, so they ended up offering me 20% more because they really liked me, right? So to me, that has worked really well. Even though I respect people, comes to an interview, how much do you want to make? 54. Okay. I don't know, it feels a bit weird, right? What else? Again, strengths and weaknesses. That will happen on HR, yeah? They want to see. It's not about your hard skills. It's about talk about yourself. Yeah, be ready. Just prepare 2 or 3 things on each side, because that will happen on the majority of these interviews, the face-to-face processes. Yeah, I'm sure everyone can quickly figure out 2 or 3 good things about yourself. Right? That's super simple. But about weaknesses, maybe it's not that simple. Right? What would you say in a job interview that is a weakness? It's not that simple, right? I guess no one will say, I don't like to have a shower more than once a month or things like that, right? Even if that's true, I guess no one will say that. Or like, I fall in love with my manager wife or things like that, right? There are some lines that everyone understands that shouldn't be crossed, right? But in a serious note, so what I tend to talk, and again, this is true in my case, let's talk about weaknesses that it's true, they're weaknesses, but in reality they have some positive note. For instance, I struggle to disconnect, and that's true. If I'm working in a problem, if I'm struggling with a problem, I go home and I struggle to disconnect. To me, that's a weakness, yes, because it's not healthy. I should go home and play with my dog, with my wife, or with my friends. Shouldn't be thinking about that algorithm. But at the same time, it proves attitude. It proves like you are committed to solve problems. Yeah. So in my opinion, you should think about all this sort of ideas. Yep.
Actually, yeah. On that note as well, about if you're one of those persons who likes to take work home after finishing work. And will it be viewed positively by their company, or will they be suspicious about that?
Suspicious. Why suspicious?
Well, I thought that, well, if we want to take work home, it shows that we're enthusiastic to get the task done.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it might make them think that he probably doesn't have a life outside work.
Again, this is very personal, right? Depending on who receives the message, they will have different opinions about that weakness. Yeah, so this is not rocket science. So don't take that as this is the weakness you should say. Of course not. That's just an example. But I'm sure you can think about others, like, I don't know, many different examples. Go to Google, guys. But the message here is just be ready. Be ready for the question. Whatever you said, be ready. It's very weird when you ask to any candidate, can you give me your main three weaknesses? I don't know. Don't do that, right? You know that question will happen. That proves you didn't prepare the interview. Right. Yeah, and again, as we mentioned before, if you are a developer and you're expecting to become a developer, be ready to read others' code. This is one of the most complicated aspects of a job interview. And if you're doing pairing, like doing coding, live coding with someone else, be as much communicative as possible. Try to explain. Some people, you show a problem, like, hey, we got this code, it doesn't work. Can you figure out why? And they like super focused, like motorbike, right? They go there and they solve it, but they don't say anything. That's horrible, especially if the company do pairing, because nobody wants to do pairing with someone who is like that 8 hours a day. Yeah. So even more important than solving where the problem is, in which line, where is the missing semicolon, even more important than that is to express your thought, like, okay, I got that problem, I got that line, let me try to see that, why you did that, ask question, right? This is a pairing, it's like a ping pong. You should communicate with the colleague you are pairing with. And last but not least, that's one of the most awkward things I've seen in a job interview. I understand that one day, maybe that happened already in your life, it depends on everybody, right? You'll join an interview full of confidence because you'll be super strong, whatever you are doing, and the problem you get may be pretty obvious, or even if it's not obvious, you try to demonstrate how good you are. Sometimes the code they show you, if we are talking about code, or even not necessarily about code, about methodology, whatever, sometimes what they show you is something artificial that they made up just for the interview, which is fine. But sometimes they show you real code. They have software, they show you real software, and they want to see how much you understand and you communicate. If we're talking about real code or real planning or real whatever, it's likely to be far from being perfect. It will have problems, glitches, yeah, something we can improve. It's absolutely fine to suggest, in my opinion, I think we could do that. That attitude is fine. But some people, because I don't know, maybe they want to prove how good they are a bit aggressive with their thoughts. That code is, who did that, right? Don't be that aggressive, because that code is there because of many reasons, maybe historical reasons. Maybe that piece of code has been maintained by 20 developers over the last 5 years, many different styles, many different backgrounds. So please, if you complain about the code or about whatever, which is fine, be polite and be positive. Be positive. I'm going to skip the classic technical questions because this is very specific about coding or about web coding. If anyone is interested in going deeper, we can have a chat about that later on. And generally speaking, after this maybe 30 minutes chat between you and the technical or non-technical person, there is a classic final one, right? Do you have any questions for us? We always finish the interviews with that, right? Be ready for that. It's also very weird, as weird as not being able to answer what do you know about our company, as weird as that is, do you have any question for us? And say, no, that's it. Wrong. First impression happened only once. This is the last impression, because after that you leave, right? So don't say, no, I don't have any questions. Ask questions, right? But please, I tend to have a list of questions that, generally speaking, I tend to ask, right? But please make sure that these questions have not been covered during the interview, right? Things like, this is real, this is in my case. So how is the team structured, right? Do you work with Agile? How big the teams are? All this, what technologies are you using? All these sort of things, right? What are the long-term plans for the product? That proves like you are interested to stay long, right? One of the main problems in software, especially in London, is developers, they tend to move quickly. Yeah, you invest on a developer, you pay a lot of money, and in 6 months the developer has left because someone else is paying more, right? So that sort of long-term commitment is highly appreciated. Even if that doesn't happen, even if you eventually leave. But question like, what are the long terms of the product? That proves that at least you have some interest in the long term, yeah? So again, obviously ask this question unless they've been covered during the interview. And if you remember, before the interview, I told you, go to the LinkedIn of the interviewer, scroll down, keep scrolling, find something weird on that profile. And this is always my last question. Out of curiosity, I saw in your LinkedIn profile that completely random, right? Like you work on that company, you study on that university, you did a project on GitHub 10 years ago, something weird that they are not expecting you to know. Because if you ask that question as the final question, like, oh, this guy has really analyzed and studied, who we are, right? So to me, this is my favorite part because you can see their faces like, oh, how do you know that? I'm wondering whether for some of them it's like a bit snaky, but to me, it has worked, yeah? We're almost done. Just a couple of things. Generally speaking, not developers, any candidate leaves the building and that's it, and waits, yeah, for any answer. However, to me, there are a few things we can do after the interview. So, sending an email to the company or a message to the interviewer, to the person on LinkedIn. Just basic communication, right? So, that's a classic scenario. So, you are doing an interview. That happened with one of the interviews I did. I had 5 technical questions over the phone, and I managed to solve 4 of them. I struggled in one of them. Still, was okay to progress to the next step. But because I didn't feel good with myself, because I failed on the question, what I did is I did some research that day. I went home and I studied the question a bit. And what I did is I sent an email to the company saying, in regards to the question I didn't manage to answer, I've been doing a bit of research and then I learned blah, 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 blah. That message is fantastic. Because it proves that even if you don't know something, you have the ability and you have the attitude and the energy to figure out things, yeah? They don't expect that. Pretty much nobody does that. So if you do that, that's a big bonus. Don't forget something. You are competing against other people. So you need to do things differently, better than them. And if the interview went perfect, that may happen sometimes, yeah? That may happen sometimes. If the interview went, I can tell you something that happened a long time ago. I did a conference for Google, JavaScript conference. After that conference, was an international one, I got many offers, good ones. And in the job interview, they just wanted to hire me, so there was no job interview. We spent like 1 hour talking about Formula One, cars, and things like that. And so there was nothing wrong on my side. But still, in that case, I think it's very good to send a polite message, thank you for your time. Yeah? Again, that proves it takes 30 seconds to send a message like that. And yeah, last thing, hopefully you will never need that, but be careful. I've heard, and that never happened to me, but I heard stories. Yeah? If you feel uncomfortable because of whatever reason on the interview, I'm not talking uncomfortable like the questions are too complicated, because this thing happened. Uncomfortable like inappropriate questions like, are you married? Do you do anything tonight? All these sort of questions. How old are you? Do you have any kids? These questions are not legal. On top of that, if you know that, because that may happen. I've been on interviews where I got the feeling that the candidate was applying to the wrong role. It was because he was unable to answer any single question. So it's a bit uncomfortable, right? It's because you are uncomfortable, she's obviously uncomfortable. It's not a good time. But be respectful. And if you feel like you as a candidate struggle in a job interview, because that may happen, the employer should be respectful as well. If you notice that they are not being respectful with you, for instance, like you are having a bad time, you are unable to answer because you are neighbors, you are under pressure, whatever, and they are like smiling, all these things, please note that in the EU, they are forced to keep every single note that has been written for 6 months. So if they are making like jokes and they are writing down things that you don't know what they are writing, but because of their face, you feel like nothing appropriate is being written, you can ask the company, I want to see what that person wrote about me. Yeah. And again, that never happened to me personally, but I heard stories and they do that, especially if it's a big company, they know that. And we as interviewers, we were aware of that. Once you finish the interview, that paper, what you wrote, maybe three silly things, don't destroy it. Just leave it in a safe place because the candidate may require it. Yeah. So again, hopefully you'll never need that. But if one day, unfortunately, you are in that situation, just let you know that you have these rights. And that's pretty much it from my side, guys. So do you have any questions?
When looking for jobs, do you recommend using recruitment agencies and going to companies directly as well, or a mix?
We're recording the session, so I like to be a bit bolder with my thoughts later on.
Right.
But generally speaking, it depends on where you are. For instance, in the UK, recruitment agencies are pretty much the only way to get a job, because tech companies highly depend on them. And even if you're applying to a big company, some big companies, they have their own internal recruitment agency. Yeah. Even in that case, the external ones prove to be way more efficient because external ones, they get a fee. Yeah. For instance, if you're applying to a contractor position and you're making 600 a day, so the agency may take 10-12% on top of that. Yeah. So generally speaking, the best, if not the only way to break into the company, unless you have some network, some contacts in the company, is through an agency. Yeah. Which is in the short term, it's a good thing because if you don't have any experience, any contacts, they will open a wall, right? And at the moment, we finished the last cohort, the last bootcamp here 2 weeks ago, and now one of the guys got a job already, and others are interviewing. And now it's literally today they are in the middle of the interview process because of the agencies. We speak to the agencies, we got a list of guys. Do you have any opportunity for them? So they will filter them out. Yeah. Also, FYI, the majority of the recruitment agencies in the IT world, they don't have any technical background, which is challenging. It's challenging because we speak different languages. Yeah, so sometimes it's complicated to match. Yeah. In the long term, you will end up having your circle of people that you trust. Yeah, maybe 2-3 recruitment agencies. So whenever you want to move somewhere else, you'll call them, and they will filter the opportunities. Yeah. Also, something that happened to me some years ago is I had to change my phone number because when I was younger, and an agency used to ask me, do you mind sending your phone number? So if there is an opportunity, we'll call you. At some point you think that's a good idea, and it is a good idea at some point in your life, right? But once you start saying your phone number a few times, they will keep calling you all the time. So for productivity reasons, I had to stop setting my phone number and change it. Yeah, but that's a problem. But hey, that's a good problem, right? If you get 10 job offers a day, it's a good problem. So that's it.
Related to that, I keep getting requests from LinkedIn from agencies. Is it good to connect with them all? Or
so I have a strategy. With LinkedIn, it's more complicated, but with the email, I have a strategy. So the strategy is, you get an offer, and generally speaking, you are not interested in the offer because of whatever reason. So what I do is I send a polite message. I have a template like, hello, $recruiter. Thank you for considering my profile. At the moment, I'm not interested. Let's catch up in 6 months. Yeah? That classic email. If they come back to me, like, no problem at all, thank you, let's stay in touch, whitelisted. 90% of the time, they don't come back to me again. In regards to that thread, they ignore me. And they may come back to me again in 3-4 days with the same message, with a different role. Hey, Ricardo, how are you doing? The same thing, a new offer, right? Like I told you 3 days ago, I wasn't interested. What do you think has happened in my life in 3 days? So now you get the point, right? So if the person doesn't reply in the first email, because the first thing they see is I'm not interested, skip, ignore, yeah? If they don't reply, I have a filter on my email to ignore them. Mark as read and ignore. Yeah? So the majority of the emails I receive are ignored because I don't want to make business with people who is unable to communicate efficiently. I'm not talking about having technical skills because that's a lost battle, but at least being polite and saying thank you, let's stay in touch. Yeah? Again, not everyone is like that. Not everyone is like that. Thankfully, you met really good, very professional agencies, and these are the ones that you really want to keep in your network. Yeah.
So I've worked as a web developer for over 15 years, but mostly by myself, not in a team. So now that I'm facing interviews, it's mostly like, have you got agile experience working in a team?
Yeah.
Experience working in continuous delivery, these
Yeah.
kind of things. So do you have any good answers for that? Except for telling me.
Good answer for what?
Like, well, I know about agile, but I can't say I've worked in an agile team as such. So that's just telling truthfully, that's all you can do, or is there somewhere you can?
Yeah, I mean, agile. Does everyone know what agile is? Yeah? No? Yeah? So in classic software development, I'm feeling a bit old now, the way we structure our projects was using waterfall. So waterfall means you have an idea, you have a good budget, so you spend a lot of time preparing your software. Preparing software means doing a lot of analysis, requirement gathering, yeah? A lot of testing, a lot of sketching. You spend months or even years implementing that idea, testing it, and eventually, after a long time, you release it to your customers. What happened? Maybe in some scenarios, nobody really cared about that piece of software because you didn't ask anyone if that's what they wanted or not. Yeah? That's one of the reasons why the majority of the software in the 90s used to fail commercially. It doesn't mean that today is not failing, but in the old times, the ratio was much worse than today. So then someone created the Agile Manifesto. Right? So what was the problem with waterfall? That you felt that you had the knowledge to decide what your customers wanted. That had proved to be a failure. Yeah? So with Agile, it means, do you have an idea? Fantastic. Let's create an MVP, a minimum viable product. Let's create a mock-up, a sketch, something very basic. Let's create it, let's quickly deliver it to our customers, and let's get feedback. Yeah? Based on the feedback, we'll iterate, we'll continue working on the project, listening to our customers. Yeah? Continuous delivery. That's the process of do something, deliver it. Do something, deliver it. Yeah? Maybe you heard about things like Kanban or Scrum. So all these things turn around the idea of Agile. If you notice in our corner, we got an Agile board, a virtual one, or a real one, but this is not a proper board, it's just the wall, right? So this is the way the majority of the companies represent Agile. So you are working in one task, add a login form to our platform, for example, and once you finish it, you deliver it, and you take the next one in the backlog. Yeah. So we keep quickly moving through the process of adding new features into our system. So in here, our students, they learn Agile by accident before they know what it is, because that's what they do from the first day. In a real work, if you don't have experience with Agile, what can I tell you, right? At least be aware of what it means, which is something, the principles are very simple, right? So Agile, on top of the methodology, talks about a series of events. Yeah, events. For instance, the stand-up session. Stand-up session is the catch-up that, generally speaking, happens early in the morning, where everybody quickly shares the status. What you did yesterday, what's your plan for the day, are you blocked by any of your colleagues, are you waiting for any feedback? Yeah. So Agile has different stages in terms of planning and follow-up. Also retrospective sessions. At the end of every week or every other week, we have a session where we discuss what went well and even better if, I think they call it here, right? So essentially everyone, freedom of speech, can share how the week went. And if something didn't work well, could be technical or not technical, could be like the room is too hot, could be whatever, right? Then let's take an action, yeah? Depends on the country, these things change a bit. For instance, here, these sessions are very polite. Yeah, remember when I was working in Germany, they were way more aggressive. Yeah, it wasn't what went well, even better if it was good and bad, that's it, and fight, yeah? But the principle, the idea is the same, right? Let's try to keep improving and keep changing.
Quick question. So you mentioned earlier that Sky is probably one of the best places to work in London. So I think it's a two-part question. Why is that? And then also, as someone who's not from the industry trying to break in, what kind of things in job roles and companies should I kind of look for to think, that's a good place to start?
Yeah. Okay, that's a really good question. So I can talk a lot about Sky because I used to work for them for quite a lot of time. Actually, that was my first company in this country. And I joined them because I got really good feedback from other people. And now, because I know them, I agree on all these things, yeah? So when our students are learning how to code, how to deal with Agile, when they're getting ready for the market, so there is a classic question, thinking ahead. What do you want to do afterwards, right? So there, generally speaking, I like to display like a line with two boundaries. In one side, we got small companies, startups, especially in fintech in London, right? So pros and cons. So what's the good thing of joining a small company like a startup? First of all, to me, the main benefit, the main advantage is you are going to learn a lot, yeah? Because a startup is probably you plus the CTO or plus a senior developer. It's a very small group, so you need to figure out by yourself how to do things, right? So that's very valuable. It could be stressful for some people, but if you accept the challenge in the long term, that will be very beneficial. Don't forget that the salary as a developer improves on a yearly basis about 15-20%. So the more you learn, the more you get paid in a shorter period of time, right? So that's, to me, the main advantage of joining a small company. On the negative side, generally speaking, you work more because the working hours are a bit like that. And also the stability, yeah? The company may disappear from one day to the other. That's the problem of small companies, especially here in London, right? On the other side, if you join a big company, corporate environment, especially in banking or even in media, it works on the other way around. You have some sort of less pressure because you are surrounded by a team of fantastic developers and business analysts. You have a fantastic designer, fantastic front-end, back-end, DevOps, and whenever you have a problem, you ask that person and they will hopefully keenly help you on the problem, right? So that's a bit less stressful. You're likely to work less hours and you are likely going to get paid more as well, yeah? But on the other side, you are not going, generally speaking, to learn that much because you have always someone around who is going to solve the problem for you, right? I think this is pretty natural, not just about coding, about the industry. So what I like about companies like Sky, and again, not only Sky, I'm not doing any promotion or anything like that, but what I like is that they try to combine the best things of both worlds. So first of all, they are a huge company. They have 35,000 employees. It's the largest TV channel in Europe. So they got a lot of money, stability, good salaries, all these things, you got that. But also the teams are some sort of self-organized. So even if you belong to a massive company, in reality, you are working like that. You're working with a team of 5-6 people, and you have freedom, sort of freedom to select technologies, to select frameworks, to distribute tasks, all these things. Yeah? So on a daily basis, it feels like you are working for a startup, but in the long term, you get the money from daddy, from the big company, right? So that's one of the reasons why I feel like working for Sky is a good choice. But then, obviously, breaking into Sky is complicated. It's very complicated. We managed to place a student at the Sky, without experience, which is something very exotic, and we feel very proud about that. But it's very complicated because they know that people want to work for them, so the requirements are a bit, yeah.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that generally larger companies, they're more difficult to get into than smaller companies?
Yeah, it's clearly clear. Yeah, I think that I agree on that. If, for instance, if our students, if they want to join a startup, and that has happened many times, I can have a chat with the CTO, with the founder, and I can say that person is really good. You have two options. You can hire him or her today, or tomorrow will be working for someone else. Yeah? It's more direct approach, and on the other way around. When they need a developer, so it happened recently. One of the guys we managed to place in one startup has left to work in a different company. So they need someone else to replace him. So they call me, and we offer someone else. It's a very direct, close approach. When you're working for a big company, there are many steps, many stages, right? Sometimes it's very painful to break into the company, even after securing the job. It took me 8 months to break at HSBC since the day that I got the offer, right? Some processes are very slow. Anything else?
What were you doing in the meantime?
Just working for my previous company, yeah. But the thing is, that will happen, right? You work for a company, you decide to move somewhere else, but I mean, in coding, some people they do that, and actually, it's probably one of the very few industries in the world where you can do that. You have the luxury of leaving a company and then start thinking about where to go next. But generally speaking, you work for a company, you get an offer, you apply to that offer, and once you secure the new position, you announce that you are leaving, right? That's the way it works. Also bear in mind that some companies, they apply strict notice periods, especially when you're a senior. Yeah. In other words, if you want to leave the company, you should let us know, you must let us know at least 3 months or 6 months. That may ruin your opportunity to move anywhere else. Because if a company wants to hire you, generally speaking, they want to hire you yesterday, not in 6 months' time. Yeah. Anything else?
You said that agencies were like the best avenue to go through if you would live in London.
Yes.
Other than agencies, like what would be like the second or third?
You don't have many alternatives, to be honest. So to me, the way it works, you don't really go. It's like when you want to rent a flat, a house. You don't decide if you go to an agency or you check with the landlord. You go to Rightmove, you go to a website, you search what you want, how much you want to spend on that property, and they will filter the option, right? And then we'll see if that property has been there, is there because of an agency or because of a private landlord. We'll see, right? So with the job, it's the same. It's the same. You look for opportunities. There are many portals on the internet, obviously, like CW Jobs, Talent.io, many. Yeah? You search for an opportunity, and they will filter out, right? To me, again, it feels very difficult to find a job. I think that never happened in my life, that I got a job because I contact the company directly. That's a bit exotic, yeah? Because the companies, they don't want to get involved. It's a very exhausting process to find the right candidates. Like companies at the Sky, there were weeks where 60% of my time was just to interview people. That's a waste of time, money and energy for everybody, for the company and for myself, right? So that's why the way it works is they delegate the responsibility into the recruitment agency. Like, I need a really good developer as soon as possible, and then the agency will promote that opportunity all around, yeah? So I don't think you have that opportunity. You move to America, for instance, it's a bit different, because in there, the recruitment agencies aren't that important as they are here in the UK. If you move to continental Europe, it's pretty much the same. They are not that important. But here, I've never been in any single country in my life, where recruitment agencies have that power of deciding where the market goes, right? To me, it's not ideal, but hey, it's the where the market works, so we need to live with that.
Yes, I was going to ask, it's again, from a beginner's perspective, having not done many projects, kind of what things can you do to stand out in the market.
Right. So, historically speaking, to break into the IT industry, first of all, you needed a degree. That's the way in the 90s used to work, right? You had a degree, you can start working as a senior developer and blah, 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 and progressing, right? The Americans were the first to realize, especially the big ones, that was a bit silly, right? If you're a doctor, probably you need a degree. But if you're a coder, who cares, right? As far as you got experience, something you prove that you've been working for other companies, it doesn't matter if you got a degree or not, you can join the company. That has changed again, right? Now, luckily, thankfully, you don't even need experience to work as a developer. Why? Because there are really good developers that they like coding and they can prove how good they are. Yeah. At the end, a company wants someone who is able to solve problems, regardless of how they manage to get that know-how. Right? And that's the reasons why our students they get a job. Yeah, because they prove to know how to solve problems. Right. So there are different ways to break into the market without commercial experience, right, and without any degree. Option number one, obviously, join a bootcamp like Codiri or any other, right? That will help you. If you don't want to do that, you really need a good portfolio. So you need a good bunch of projects. So I can click on the links, I can check your GitHub account, and I can see you participating in these projects. I want to see that you participated on Meetup, that you organize a Meetup, or at least you collaborate, or you've done a workshop, or you've done a talk. I want to see some reaction, some sort of energy from you, right? But yeah, it's always complicated, obviously, because there is a lot of people like you in the market looking for opportunities. So unless you are certified by someone, it could be a bit complicated, to be honest.
Yeah, you mentioned that you should drop in like your portfolio and GitHub into like your CV. Like, how would you like drop it in? Like, would you like it at the top? Would you like?
There are different styles, right? So we reviewed CVs with the students, but I don't really mind if this link is on the left, on the right. That's not important, right? It should be visible. It should be clearly visible because it's one of the most valuable things of your CV. Don't forget, if you don't have an experience, you are fighting with many developers that are like you. They don't have any experience neither. You need to do something different. Yeah. What's different? Having a portfolio. 90% of junior developers, they don't have a portfolio. So you have a portfolio, you have to do something different. If you have recorded a video and it's on YouTube, that's something different. So just promote these things, move them. Yeah. So if your CV has more than 2 pages, that will look weird unless you're a very senior developer, right? So the majority of the recruiters and companies, they check. Yeah, I tell you, I've seen people reading the first half of the first page. That's it. Next. Yeah. So you should condense the vital aspects, the different aspects of your profile on the very top of the CV. Anything else, guys? So anyway, I'll stay here for a while. There are some drinks in the fridge, so I'll bring them and then we can keep talking. So you have, last question?
That's great. We talk about small companies, large companies. Perhaps also difference between private and public sector companies when they hire, especially IT people. Are there any big differences in the manner in which they hire? Let's take, for example, a well-known private company versus something like the local government company.
Yeah. So based on my experience, generally speaking, the good developers, they tend to stay on the private part. They don't used to work for the public administration, and I'll tell you why. If you work for a company who is creating a product, services, the company has full control on what they build. They have some sort of freedom. If you work for the public administration, essentially, you are just fitting with some requirements that they are defining. Yeah,
because I suppose with the county councils, the requirements ultimately come from government down through. So I suppose it's a little bit more restrictive.
It's more restrictive, it's more complicated, and it's hard to make plans in the long term because the public administration, so when they have a requirement, so there are companies fighting to get access to that project. So you may be working on a project and then the next year the project may be assigned to a different company, or on the other way around, you may have to maintain legacy code from other company. is, to me, under my experience, is generally speaking not a great thing in the long term. It's really good to start working on that, to get some experience, but in the long term, what you want is to have control on the software you're building. You don't work to get the requirements from a third party, which is 300 miles away, and some of the requirements are weird. You don't want to do that. You want to have full control. And on the private industry, to me, my experience is that this is more likely to happen. Yep.
Just quickly, do you have any idea of the state of the market nowadays?
Yeah, of course. In terms of what? Salaries?
Opportunities, whatever.
I mean, as I mentioned before, this is not specific about London, but particularly applies to London. Yeah. So there are many opportunities. The market at the moment is boiling, despite of Brexit and despite of whatever. Yeah, it's literally boiling. So London is the first European hub in IT. To me, under my experience, is the third best place to work as a developer in the world after New York and LA, right? So in London, there are many opportunities. It also depends on what you want to do, right? In London, there's a lot of fintech, a lot of banking, a lot of media, right? And these companies, they work a lot with, first of all, web technologies. That's the main thing. So if you're thinking about breaking into the IT market as a developer, but you don't know which technology, the main thing, and this is not going to change in the short term, is JavaScript and React. Yeah. So if you know JavaScript and React, you are massively maximizes your chances to get a job. Yeah. That's for sure, without hesitation. After that, then we got Python, which is very popular, especially on the machine learning, data science. Yeah.
I was going to say, because actually data science is like one of the biggest subjects within IT, and if you know Python or R, you're definitely better off.
What about NLP, if you heard of?
What?
NLP, natural language processing.
That's a sub-branch of machine learning.
Yeah, it's a branch. It's mine.
Yeah, so I think. So if you have skills in NLP or having deep learning, which is like for advanced machine learning, I think there's a lot of jobs in that.
There are a lot of use of these things, but again, I don't mind how many opportunities you have on Python. There are way more on JavaScript and React, right? Because of a reason, people don't want to see that. And again, I'm not against Python. I love Python. But one of the reasons why we do JavaScript and React here is because out of 10 offers in London, 7 are React and JavaScript, 2 are Python. I'm exaggerating. This is not literal, right? But there is, for every opportunity in Python, there are 2 or 3 on JavaScript and React, right? And we need to, especially when you start working as a developer. Once you're a senior developer, I'm sure by natural interest, you'll learn new things. But in the first role, you need to maximize your chances. Yeah, and this is not going to change in the short term. I've been using JavaScript since 2002 professionally, and it was a toy language, and now it's the most popular one. Yeah, according to GitHub, it's more popular than Python and Java combined, which are the second and the third. Yep.
Speaking of catching up, in terms of, like, I'm in a small company. I want to grow with the product and all that stuff.
Yep.
How much of the time you spend on actually learning stuff that you're going to implement?
It's a lot, right? More than desired. One of the reasons why there are so many opportunities is because every day there is something new to learn, right? So you have the right stack at the right time, you have many opportunities, but the side effect is you need to keep learning all the time. This is a never-ending story. Yeah. Actually, talking about JavaScript and React, you know what React is? Yeah. Who is the owner of React? Is anyone? It's Facebook, right? Who was React at the moment is the king of the UI libraries. Who was the former king before React? Angular. Who was the owner of Angular? Google, correct. So there was a big fight. Facebook won the battle, so now they've been on top for about 4 years, which is something very exotic in JavaScript. 4 years in JavaScript world is like 4 million years in human time. Yeah. But also now there is a new competitor of React, which is, does anyone know? Vue. Who is behind Vue? It's Chinese. Yeah. So by the first time ever, Americans don't have full control on the development, on the software, right? Yeah, we'll see what happens. But anyway, still today, React, unless you plan to move to China, React is the king. So this is what you should learn, in my opinion.
I'm asking in terms of, like, how much did you want to spend on learning and how much did you have to learn?
That's a weird question. I don't know what to say, to be honest.
From your experience.
From my experience, generally speaking, you never said, oh, I want to learn React. I'm going to spend 2 months of my life learning React. You don't do that, generally speaking. So what you do is you have a problem, and then you spend as much time as necessary dealing with that problem. For instance, you want to build a sign-up system where you want to encrypt user passwords. How do you encrypt a password? Maybe you don't know, right? Maybe you never faced that particular problem. At that time, you will do the research about which libraries help you to deal with the problem. So to me, that approach of spending fixed period of time box learning this, that, to me, that doesn't work. I believe it feels much more natural, to learn at the time that you build. Even though at some point that means that something you build is not as good as it should expect. But that's part of the agile process. Do something, and then we'll improve it. No problem at all. We'll improve it. But keep delivering, keep providing content to your customers. Right. Ask questions.
So in Codery, what stack do you teach your students?
Yeah, we can talk about that as soon as we stop recording. Yeah, because I need 5 minutes of your time, as we mentioned before.
What was the question?
About Codery, what do we do here and stuff? Yeah. So I'll talk about it in a minute because I want to show you a couple of things. Again, 5 minutes. Trust me. Anything else? No? Cool. So thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoyed the session. And now stay, please, because I want to show you some links about some very good events that I'm sure you're going to like. So thank you very much.